Welcome to the Breaking 90 podcast, where we talk about all things sustainable fat loss. We take people on 90-day journeys to creating fat loss forever. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy the episode.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Breaking 90 Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Jerrika Rydell, with soon to be Jerrika Liliev, with my amazing co-host, Kelly Sarlo. And we're two of the coaches of Breaking 90 Fitness.
Soon to be, can you repeat that?
Jerrika Liliev.
Liliev. Beautiful.
Yeah. It's actually could be French as well, but I'm more of a French family. Trav's family is not. So we actually, like, his grandparents are, but we just say it straight English.
Love it.
Yeah. But it
Beautiful.
means the rabbit in English, basically.
Very cool.
Yeah. So that's coming up soon.
Okay, tell me more.
I've got some things to do, but in 2 weeks I'll be getting married. Slowly, so fun.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's busy. Even though it's small, it's busy.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
Yeah, but it's good. And we got an adventure race. Me and a couple of friends this weekend. We're out in Parry Sound, Ontario, which is cool. This is the one I did 2 years ago. For those listening to our podcast still from 2 years ago, which would be awesome. But I did this one where we're out in the middle of nowhere with a compass and a map, and we have to get to our checkpoints via canoe, mountain bike, or trekking. It's an incredible experience for those that love the outdoors.
Good for you. And you're doing this all before your wedding.
So I just can't get hurt,
or bruised, or
just knocking on wood.
Yeah. Keep everything good.
Yeah. Excuse me. It'll be fun. So lots going on, but I'm looking forward to chatting with you today.
Nice. What do you have for us?
So it's crazy because we're already talking holiday season, and I know we've already recorded you and Alex, but I want to touch on guilt-free holidays, just a little bit more, I guess. We can dive into nutrition, but I think we can also dive into movement and mindset, because not only when our clients hear guilt-free holidays, I know everyone that's listening is thinking, oh, it's about the food. But there's so many aspects to the holidays that take our attention and take our time, and that guilt sets in. And I think you're the perfect mindset person to talk about what we can tweak and what's happening.
Thank you. Well,
awesome.
Where do you want to start? My brain's going in a million directions.
Well, I mean, we can start just quickly touching on maybe the nutrition and fitness component, because I'd love to dive more into just the general mindset around the holidays and that guilt. So, we can just touch on how to enjoy ourselves with nutrition and with the food gatherings and why we can eat the damn food.
Because we're going to eat the damn food.
That's right. And
okay.
Yeah, go ahead. I have things to add on to you.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't want to cut you off.
I was just going to say, sorry. The holidays land on maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 days of that month. For some people, it might be more, but I'm thinking of like 3 big family gatherings that I typically hold. And if you look at the 3 days out of the 31 days in December, that's really not that many days to just enjoy yourself, right? So we coach that 80% rule, and that's 6 days of the month. We put those O's on the calendar, which means we just kind of go outside of our general consumption. So really, in the grand scheme of things, don't overthink it and enjoy the damn food, because it's just a few small days. Now, we do have to think about ways we can still prioritize our goals on the other days, or maybe the mornings of, and those are things we've talked about in podcasts already, but I think it's worth touching on.
Cool. Yeah. The first place I want to start, which you might laugh at, is language. So guilt, like, let's figure out what that means anyway, because I think a lot of people toss that around and, oh, I feel so guilty, and I just want to do things guilt-free, and that's fine, but like, let's fucking define it first. So guilt actually means I've done something wrong, right? So guilt is an emotion that we experience when we register that we've done something wrong. So the first thing that we need to do with that definition is start to backtrack and go, okay, so then what do I think is right? right? What is the expectation? Because if I'm feeling guilty, then there's obviously something I've done to go against an expectation, right? Let's break down the logic of it first. So if the idea is I'm supposed to be eating and moving, for example, the same way I have throughout the entire year, and I'm going to be operating at my peak, performance and eating at my peak nutrition intake or whatever, then okay, are our expectations realistic? Because if we rejigged the expectations themselves, guilt may not necessarily need to come into the equation, right? So we do need to kind of work this forwards and backwards so that we're not just winding up feeling guilty, right? Or walking into it fearful that we inevitably will feel guilty. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yep.
Cool. So it's about identifying and managing expectations. Um, so if we look at what you were talking about, how do I want to go into this eating wise? If it is it really just 3 days? Because this is another thing, right? For a lot of people, it's like, oh yeah, it's just 3 days out of the year, and you're correct. Numbers wise, it is. But the frequency with which you're overeating, if that's happening more often than not, or well above, the
And the chocolates
20%.
here and all the treats still sitting in your on your counter from the night before, and exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Then what we actually might be doing is putting our focus too heavily on those holidays and labeling those the problem, when really what it's exposing is that we are not consistent throughout the rest of the year. And it gets highlighted at this time of year because we even more overindulge, right? And what we might really fear or detest about the holidays is that it magnifies our poor behavior more often than not.
Boom. I
Yeah.
love that you said that. Yep. Awesome.
Yeah, because if we really were checking in 80% of the time, consistently healthy with our nutrition and movement, then those 3 days would leave us unbothered, right? Because we would know how to tackle them with realistic expectations. Good.
Awesome. Yep.
So I think for a lot of people, it's getting brutally honest with ourselves about where the actual guilt lies. Okay,
For sure. For sure that. Yeah. Yes. This is good.
cool. And we can apply this to movement as well, right? Because you
Yes.
said most people are going to go to food first, which is fair because that's usually the focus of everything. But then what happens is because we're super busy, our movement possibly dwindles. Maybe we're not getting to the gym. Maybe we're out of town and we don't have access to it. We're, stuck stuck with family. That's so terrible. I'm sorry. I'm sure a lot of people will feel
I
that.
think when you say that, I just pictured like, stuck sitting on a couch with gathering
Yeah.
with family. That's more like, you're always just kind of sitting and chatting. I
Yeah.
think that's the word stuck. To me, I don't take it the wrong way.
Yeah. Yeah. Where what you are supposed to be doing during the holidays is
Right.
visiting, right?
Yes.
Yes, and it is very housebound for most people. So
Right.
one of the things that we could look at is, okay, again, in terms of expectations, given what I know about the schedule of what I've committed to in those 3 days, let's say, or that week of Christmas, for example, where can my movement be and what can it look like, right? And if it isn't the gym, is it a walk around the block? Is it a body weight movement workout? Is it some different version of what I've been doing? And this is where we can insert a different concept of BAMs or bare ass minimums that allows us to get through things guilt free because we've still committed to, and let's tie in another guiding principle, something over nothing.
Right. And this is funny. It made me think of my family stopped doing gifts and we started doing games. So we all bring a
Ooh.
game like throughout the holidays or on one night, depends on how often we're seeing each other. And so we all, whether it's those minute to win it games or an outdoor snow curling or something in the backyard, like we all have a game that we have to coach and take over and play throughout the holidays.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's a good way to get us outside and a good way to get us moving more and the less focus around food and drinks
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
gifts because we're all adults and we don't need anything at this point. So we try to
I
create
love that.
memories. Yeah.
I hope, I think a lot of people will probably want to adopt that when they hear
Yeah.
it.
Awesome.
That's
I hope so.
wicked.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Um, Okay, so then in terms of mindset, guilt-free, I think this is probably actually one of the hardest things that people
Mm-hmm.
cope with, right? Because we feel big obligations to be with family or to be social, I'll say, depending on the dynamics of any of the relationships you hold in your life. There's really this feeling of obligation that I need to be with others for others. And so what happens is the guilt really heavily lies on if I'm not there with them or for them, then I'm a bad sister, daughter, granddaughter, however you want to word it, right? And so again, kind of coming back to, well, what do I truly believe about what I'm supposed to do? And I know we've talked about this dirty S word, which is should, right? When we should all over ourselves, guilt comes into play because we really maybe have an unhealthy belief system about what it is or how we should be conducting ourselves. Now, we can lump that into nutrition and movement as well, but I think people also want to pay attention to how they're spending their time too, right? And who
This
they're
is what I was
spending it with.
hoping you dive into. That's awesome. This
Yeah.
is, I think that people don't realize that this probably takes over that big, one of the biggest feelings on their chest throughout the holidays.
Yeah, and consequently, which I'm sure many people probably have already made this connection, is that because of that piece we're talking about with family or friends or coworkers, because there's so much discomfort and potentially so much feelings or so many feelings of guilt, we use nutrition or food as a crutch, right? And so
Yep.
we end up saying we feel guilty about the food when really we are avoiding some really healthy boundaries that need to be put in place with our structures of how we're operating so that food doesn't become the thing we're looking to for emotional comfort or emotional safety.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah, because the fatigue of not having the healthy boundaries with your loved ones or your people that you tolerate, I'll say, because sometimes those are two very different things, can make you so exhausted that you don't want to move or feel like you don't have the energy to move. And or there will be some people listening who will use it as an outlet and overexert themselves, right? Where they're like, got to go for my run because I need that outlet because I can't set a healthy boundary with mom or dad, right? Even though I'm a
Yes.
36-year-old woman with my own children, I can't say no to my parents. So I'm going to go run myself into the ground 7 days a week while I'm hosting, while I'm doing all these things. And movement becomes not just the outlet, though we call it that, it becomes this like punishment and where like a place to put our pain instead of actually, into the conversations that need to happen. And
Uh,
I recognize that we're bringing up a lot of hard things here and that we're not going to necessarily solve them on the podcast. But that is certainly a reason to have a conversation with a coach, whether it's Breaking 90 Fitness or the coach you're currently seeing, to be able to troubleshoot like, hey, holidays are coming up and this is the pattern I normally see, feel, or engage in. Can we talk about a game plan and some accountability?
exactly. That's what these podcasts are about, right? It's just about recognizing our learning.
Mm.
And hopefully those listening can take the next steps to be like, okay. And maybe all of this is, maybe the food, the movement, and the mindset around family and gathering, it's all hitting. Maybe just pick one. Start with one, right? It might be overwhelming.
Mhm.
Start with one of them and talk to whoever is your coach or someone you can make a game plan with, because it's worth starting somewhere, right? Especially with it being that time of the year.
Yeah, I love that. And we chatted about that, Alex and I, in another episode, just saying, like, if all you do, as Jerrika was mentioning, was pick one, and that is to make sure that you are cooking more vegetables this holiday season and incorporating vegetables at every meal, you are further ahead than you probably were last year, right? And it may not be 100% guilt-free if you still haven't kind of uprooted some belief systems, but you might sit there and be like, I crushed the nutrition. I had so many more vegetables than ever before. I feel really proud of myself, right?
Yep.
Those wins that we start to accumulate start to become more of who we are, and it empowers us to pick one more thing and feel capable of focusing on that. And that builds self-esteem.
Awesome. Awesome, Kelly. Is there anything else? I know this is short, but I don't want to, it got a little heavy, which is good. I
Yeah.
think it needed to. But is there any other thing that comes to mind when you're thinking around this topic?
I, yeah, it's a good question. Like, if I back up to nutrition just for a moment, because again, I think that's where a lot of people are going to want to put their focus, especially if they're on a weight loss journey. One of the things I would mention is like plan ahead to whether you're hosting or you're going to be attending different meals, plan ahead to the types of foods that you enjoy and also feel guilt-free for you, right? So if it's a recipe that you have, if it's a recipe that your parents, made and you want to call them and say, "Hey, would you be open to making this meal when you host this year?" Like, that's just one more way to set yourself up for something that you can indulge in that is going to be guilt free that you know about. I think for many of us, we walk into some of these traditional meals feeling very like surprised. Um, and we will claim that we are surprised. This is a little bit of a call out. And it's like, no, you kind of know what dishes are going to be there year after year. The family depends on it, right? And so
Yes.
if we don't lie to ourselves and we start to plan out what would actually feel good and feel like part of a holiday celebration, let's say, we're taking back a little bit of healthy control in our lives and something that we are happily indulging in. And that feels good.
Absolutely. That's a tip that we give for, if you listen to our podcast in the summer around barbecue, social gathering season, we always say either bring something that makes you feel good or aligns with your goals. And it doesn't have to be, the most healthy, this, that, like it could just be a tweak that makes you feel, like Kelly said, makes you feel better about, indulging in it. Just bring something that aligns with you, that at least one thing will be there, and then portion out everything else that you are excited to consume.
Hmm. And I don't know why, but comes to mind is green beans for myself. But it's like if I challenge myself, fun little challenge here, to eat an extra serving of the thing I know is in alignment with my goals, or more alignment in my goals with, or pardon me, more in alignment with my goals than let's say the sugar pie. I might still have a piece of sugar pie, but I have definitely already filled up on the thing
More
that's going to
vegetables.
help me. Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Which is just inching our way to more of that guilt-free feeling.
And then it's just a simple question: is this something I would have done last year? Right? You're just one step closer. And every year you're going to notice, if you do this a little something every year, you're going to see these changes as the gatherings keep occurring.
Yep. Awesome.
Awesome. Love it. Yeah, I think that
Awesome.
that hits home to, oh, it's going to hit home to everyone listening,
Yeah.
in some way, shape, or form. So, and if it did, and some family members or friends that, maybe this is a good way to be like, hey, I'm going to share this, and then I'm going to start setting some boundaries so that are listening will be ready for it, right? So share away, take a screenshot, post it on your Facebook, your Instagram, and don't forget to tag us so that we can grow our platform. We love your feedback, so keep it coming, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.